welcome to Hacks, where we try to simplify cybersecurity. Today we are doing more web applications on hackthisite.org. Hack This Site is a website that allows you to test out and learn new hacking skills. We have blasted our way through the realistic missions and are currently looking at realistic mission number 10, Holy Word High School. If you haven't seen my other videos in the series or are stuck on one, feel free to search through my YouTube for the other ones, but let's have a look at this one. You get to do what every hacker has dreamed of, breaking in and changing grades. Help Zach get his grades fixed and prove you're as skilled as he thinks you are. Take this challenge. So, we get a message from Zach and it says, "Hey man, it's Zach. I need a favour from you. I'm in big trouble. If you remember, I go to that super uptight religious school. Well, 2 of my teachers are failing me because my lifestyle does not fall in with the moralistic rules for public behaviour. My gym teacher has even called me a long-haired hippie, and if I fail any of my classes, I won't graduate. Listen, can you hack into the school's grades database and make sure I'm passing all of my classes? I know they have this system set up that allows the teachers to submit grades and stuff on the website. And I heard you pulled off a few things in the past. Their webmasters did not think in terms of computer security when designing the website, so it may be easy or not. Please click here. The username for my account is Zach Sanchez and my password is Liberty638. So if we just copy that and make a note of it, because we may need it in the future, and go back to the website, we can click there to go and visit it. So upon visiting the website, we have Holy Word High School, awesome picture of a tiger. We got a home page, we have a staff listing page, and it lists all the teachers with their subject and their email addresses. holycross.edu. I wonder if that's a real domain. So if we go to the student access system, it should allow us to check our grades. So let's have a look. Let's get Zach's username and his password of Liberty638 and log in. Upon logging in, we get a number of new links: mathematics, English composition, Bible study, gym and computer. It doesn't seem to offer much functionality. It just shows how he's doing, and as you can see, it's not very good. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about boosting someone's grades. You know, that's could be immoral, unethical maybe, but hey, you know, let's hack it. So if we go back to the home page, we don't have a lot going on, but if we view the page source, we can see how the site is structured. So we have the home page, which links us back to index.php. We have the list teachers, which shows us the list of teachers. We have the student.php, which is the authentication mechanism that allows you to access the student system. But something we didn't see on the page was this staff.php. We got listteachers.php, but we didn't see this before. So if we head back and go to staff.php, we get a login form. Now, we could try Zach's credentials on there, but I already know they're not going to work. And we don't have anything else on the site. I've had a look around, but there's nothing else on the site like a username and password that would allow us to access this. However, we do have the teachers list. And one can assume that the teachers are going to be logging in with some form of combination of their username. Quite common in industry, your username dot your last name at domain for your email address, or your first initial dot last name for your username. So what we can do is, if we get a list of all these users and we filter them into a document, you can see there we have Gordon Freeman. But if we take these, we can then generate a word list and a password list that we can use to try and brute force the web application, the staff.php login form. So what we can use is a tool called username anarchy. Now, this is a GitHub tool. You can clone it from GitHub, and what it allows you to do is just generate usernames or even passwords based off of criteria that you give it. So with your usernames in a usernames.txt file, what we can do is username anarchy. Whoops, I got cd into it. And then we specify our input file, which is going to be our usernames.txt, which I have saved on my desktop, and that just contains the list of all the staff members. And then we're going to do what format we want. So we get to select which format, and what this tool allows you to do is it allows you to specify how you want it to produce the word list. So for instance, we could just go f last, and what that should do is it should produce the first name with the last name. Well, the first initial and then the last name, but we could also do first dot last, I typed that wrong, first dot last, and then you can do combinations of them, so you could really build up a big word list. So if we just did first dot last, and then we do a colon and f last, and then we do first last, and you can see that is it can build up a huge word list based off of given criteria. But all we're going to do, and it's mainly to save time, but because I already know which username can log in and which password it is, all I'm going to do is just do f last, so it's going to be the first initial and the last name, and then what you can do is you can do a greater than symbol and then name it like output.txt, and then that will automatically put it into a text file, which you can just sort of save for later. So I'm just going to grab these users and paste them in just underneath the usernames that we already have. Then I'm going to head over to our favorite web application penetration testing tool, Burp Suite, and I'm going to turn intercept on. And what intercept does, tell you what, I'm going to turn intercept off first of all. But what intercept does is it allows you to intercept the traffic before it gets sent to the server, and it allows you to make modifications. So if we go back to the login form and we just specify like P1 for parameter 1, P2 for parameter 2, and then we head back to Burp and we turn intercept on and we click login, Burp will intercept it, and as you can see down here, it's caught our parameters P1 and P2. Now if we send it to intruder, which is a really awesome tool, what you can see is it's already highlighted the number of values. So it's highlighted my cookies, and it's also highlighted these parameters down here, P1 and P2, but we want to clear it all off and just have P1 and P2 highlighted. So all you got to do is highlight the values and click add. Then you want to choose your method. Now you could use sniper, you could use battering ram, pitchfork. I'm just going to use cluster bomb, and what this means is just the type of the attack. So if you already knew the username and you were only attacking one parameter, say the password, you could use the sniper attack, and what it will do is it will loop through every request for your word list. So if you've got 100 values in your word list, it will send 100 requests to the server where each item in your word list is passed through to the parameter that you've selected. Hope that makes sense. So we're now going to go into the payloads tab, and as you can see here we have payload set 1. So we're going to get the usernames that we generated, and we're going to paste them into payload 1. But we also, because this is going to be the username, payload 1 is going to be supplementing the username. So then we go to payload 2 and we paste in there. So it will try to submit all the payloads in payload 1 and all the payloads in payload 2 with every request until it finds one that's correct. Then all we have to do is start the attack. There's a little warning message there to say if you're using Community Edition, it may take a long time. And this is probably going to take forever. So there's 441 requests. So what I'll do is I'll probably pause the video here and come back when it's done. And we're back. So it's just reached the point in the payload where I know that it's going to give a correct password. So if you remember, the positions were username and password, and the payloads we generated from a list of usernames that we found on the actual site itself from the staff lists. So you can see what's happening here is for payload 1 it's submitting the username, for payload 2 it's submitting the username, so based off of that username information we got. Now because we're using Burp Suite Community Edition, the payload is torturously slow, and I wish they would change it and just remove some of the other features, because we could use other tools like Hydra GTK, the GUI version of it. There are, you know, a lot of password brute forcing tools out there, but I like to use Burp as this what you would probably come across in the industry if you were to penetration test a web application. So yeah, what we're waiting on now is for the correct combination to show up, and how we can tell that usually is by the length of the responses that are coming back from the application. So if we look through the whole list of payloads that we've tried so far, this would have been quicker doing it as a pitchfork rather than a cluster bomb, but I did want to get like a good sort of I did want to get a good data set to test. But all the lengths are like 1876, and if you check the response from the server, what it should say is staff access system, invalid username and password. And then when we're doing brute force tests or any type of data exfiltration, what we're looking for is a deviation from the content length. Now usually there may be small deviations if the response includes the username as well. So if your username's longer in that response, then that response, the length of the response is going to differ slightly. But usually you will see like quite a significant difference in the length of the response you get back from the application when you find a correct set of credentials. And I'm just waiting now for it to go through the usernames list and produce a response that's longer than the invalid username and password length. And it shouldn't be too much longer, so I'm just trying to think of things to talk about in between now and then until the correct combination shows up. But once we have the correct combination, we should be able to log into the staff area where hopefully we can change the gent's grades and give him those A's that he needs in order to graduate. Bingo, there we have it. So as you can see, all the length of the responses so far have been 1876 and contain invalid username and password. And the reason why they're all the same length is because it's the same message. And as you can see, the next one after that is incorrect again. But if we go to this one with the response length of 3997, what we should see is staff access system, Miss Samantha K. Miller. But what we can also do, because Burp is amazing, is we can render that response in the browser as well to show what it looks like. Hopefully. There we go. And you can see there we have all the functionality that we should have. And if we compare that to one of the incorrect ones, it should hopefully just say incorrect username and password. If it loads. It's taken a while. I'll tell you what, I'm going to cancel that anyway, because we now know, oh, there we go. So there you go, invalid username and password. So that's how the browser would render it. But now that we know the correct username and password is smiller, we can discard this attack and go back to the application, turn off the intercept, head back to staff.php and log in with smiller. Is it 1 L or 2 L's? 2 L's. Can't type now. I shouldn't have taken that break. smiller. There we go. And we're now in the control panel for Samantha Miller. Now, you can see here we have check messages, submit grades, change grades, but unfortunately we can't change the grades Because we're not an administrator and because the time to change and submit grades has expired. How can we get around the administrator issue though? Well, if we go back and view the page source, sorry, we don't want to view the page source, we want to inspect the element. And if we head over to the application tab, what we should see in our cookies for this site is we got username S Miller, we got password. By the way, this is bad. Don't include your username and passwords in cookies. That's a terrible idea. But we've also got this cookie called admin, which is currently set to 0, which is probably false. Now, if we set it to 1 and refresh the page, suddenly we have the ability to view and change grades. However, sorry, it is too late into the school year to change the grades. Now, the grades will be printed and mailed in just a few days. So we can't change them no matter what. But this is a form. And at some point, there was probably some functionality that would have allowed you to submit and change grades. So if we just view the page source again, and scroll down the page, what we can see here is that there is an action, and it's a post method that allows you to post to staff.php with the action of change grades. And you can see a change action mode rec and rec equals 4. So I assume the rec is going to be the sort of the type of class it is, but you can also see here there is a grade parameter with a value of 2. But if we grab this post request and we head back to burp, we turn intercept on and we refresh the page. Now we come in here, we can modify it. So we've got the form from the source. But if we come in here, what we want to do first, sorry, I'm all over the place today, but if we send it to repeater first. Now we got up to staff PHP and we got this from the page source, so let's just replace it with what we have. And then if we add a parameter on called grade, because we know grade exists, and we set it to 5. Now if we go back and change rec to 0, start from 0 and work our way up, and click send, what we should see in the response from the server once it comes through what should happen is you should get a response page that says grade changed. However, in this occasion, I think what's happened is because I've already completed it, it's just sending me back to say that I've already completed this exercise. Yeah, but what you can do is you can go through those rec values and change it from 0 all the way up to 6 or 7, whatever it is. And eventually you'll get a message to say you successfully completed the mission, and that's it. You successfully changed the grades. So you stole the post request from the form that allowed you to change grades. You added the grade parameter into it and you set them all to 5. And then once you change the grades for the classes that he was failing, you complete the mission. Really fun mission. Wish I could have done this back when I was at school, but unfortunately I wasn't that technical back then. I liked computers but weren't that good with them. But yeah, very fun challenge. And the lessons that can be learned about this, we've already touched on we've already touched on cookies before, like PHP session IDs, and why you shouldn't sort of rely on cookies for sort of privileges, permissions and authentication. But the thing I want to touch on mostly today is the authentication mechanism and how that could have been better, because we were able to use the list of the staff members to generate a word list that we then used to brute force the login page. Now there are a number of problems with this. For a start, if you are logging in with a username that resembles your actual name, then realistically, or ideally you wouldn't have your name listed on the site anywhere. It's too much information disclosure. However, if you do need the users listed on the site, then what you could do is restrict access to the login page via IP address. So the teacher would come along, they connect to their VPN to the school's IP address, and then they would be able to access the login page, but nobody on the outside world would be able to. Alternatively, if they need to be able to log in from home, then you would have more complex usernames and a better password policy. You would have a password policy that locked you out after three incorrect login attempts. However, the problem with this is that if I was a student and I was feeling a bit nefarious and a little bit malicious and I didn't want the teachers to be able to log in today to update the grades, you could quite easily, repeatedly send incorrect password login requests to each of the users and lock them all out of their accounts. And then the admin's got a hell of a job to try and unlock them all, so it's not always a good way to do things. You should absolutely have a lockout method, but what's better is to implement a capture form. A completely automated Turing test to tell human computers apart, is a system sort of, I wouldn't say invented by Alan Turing, but it was his concept of being able to differentiate between humans and computers. So you've seen them before. It's when you go to a login form or you're on a website and they ask you to click on all the pictures of the bus or all the bicycles, or they ask you to submit the text in the box, but the text is slightly obfuscated so it can't be read by an optical character recognition system. So yeah, implement one of those on the login page, because what happens is you can't brute force a login page with a capture request if it's implemented correctly, because each time you submit the login request you have to submit the capture, and you can't automate, well, most of the time you can't automate that process. So that's really the sort of lessons to take away from this, is improving the authentication mechanism so it can't be brute forced. Really good challenge that demonstrates how you can do it. There are other tools out there that can do brute forcing, like Hydra. But yeah, I wanted to do it in Burp Suite to show you the type of tools you'll be using within the actual cybersecurity industry. You can use Hydra for a bunch of other things like RDP and FTP, and it's a fantastic tool. But with web apps, definitely Burp. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I may have rambled on a bit. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, give me a thumbs up, possibly subscribe. And that's it. Kind regards. See you next time. Bye.
Please hang up and try again.